The Princess here, and tonight we're going to talk about a true crime case that I've already mentioned, but we're going to do a second video that is more focused on the victims than the last one and gives some updates, but I didn't find that much. So I did my best, but we'll see here what we've got. Okay, let's get started. So tonight we're going to talk about Khalil Wheeler-Weaver and the murders of a number of women, as well as one attempted murder. So Wheeler-Weaver is considered a pretty young serial killer because he was like 20 at the time, and he had no priors on his record at all, and he had family that was in law enforcement, several members actually, and he himself was working as a security guard at the time. So just as a refresher, we're going to talk about the order of the victims real quick. Robin West, August 31st, 2016. Maua Duambia, October 2016. Tiffany Taylor, who was attacked and survived, November 2016. Sarah Butler, who was killed November 22nd, 2016, and Joanne Brown, who was killed December 2016. Now, this is the victims that we have. There's always the possibility that he killed other women that we just don't know of yet. I would speculate that there are probably more women that he killed. So, and at least there are probably other women who he assaulted, because that would make sense. Usually people don't just go and kill. They usually like escalate to that. So there were a number of things that got him locked up, especially Tiffany Taylor's testimony in court, the testimony of Sarah Butler's sister, one of her sisters, Basania, I think that's her name. She's mentioned later in this video. And the DNA under Sarah's fingernails. There's lots of evidence linking him to the locations where the crimes occurred at the time of the murders, especially the testimony and the work of Sarah's friends and her sister. They made a huge difference for sure. Alright, so at first there was a trial for Robin, Joanne, and Sarah, and also Tiffany Taylor's assault. So he was convicted of 3 counts of murder, 2 counts aggravated sexual abuse, 3 counts desecrating human remains, and 1 count kidnapping, arson, and attempted murder, which put him away for 160 years. However, Maua Duambia was discovered a month following this trial. So she was identified, and he also had a trial for her case. So Weaver was formally indicted for murdering Duambia, for assaulting a minor as she was 15, endangering a child's welfare, and desecrating human remains. So they met online, where he propositioned her similarly to Sarah Butler. He is being held in New Jersey State Prison of Trenton, New Jersey. He will not be eligible for parole until 2161, so basically never, and he's never getting out. So rest assured he is stuck, as he deserves to suffer for years in prison. So we're going to talk about Robin West. Robin was the middle child. Her mother says that as a kid, she wanted to join the Air Force. She loved planes and had also wanted to work with animals. So, according to the sources, as a teen, Robin spent time at Wordsworth Academy, a Philadelphia treatment center for youth with co-occurring behavioral and mental health concerns, one which was also referred to as a school. It was a facility which reports have disclosed alarming incidents of physical and sexual abuse by counselors against youth clients The facility was described as, having holes in the walls and electrical wires sticking out. One Wordsworth facility had to be shut down in 2016 after David Hess suffocated, or I guess was strangled to death by an employee there. An incident later determined to be a homicide. The facility was shut down October of that year. They lost their license, and emergency closure ensued 2 weeks following the 17-year-old's death, when staff attempted to restrain him on October 13th. Wordsworth's treatment facility had 83 residents at the time and had served youth from ages ranging from 10 to 21 years old. It was one of their 3 facilities located. This one was located at 3905 Ford Road. I'm thinking of including a photo of this facility and other locations in this video. So hopefully that will be coming up now once I edit this. So if you would like more details on this specific facility, I would be happy to do a video on his death, his murder, and the facility that was associated with it, caused it. So let me know, okay, in the comments. So Robin met 2 of her closest friends while staying there. Tracy Johnson, 27 now, I believe, and Bernicia Patterson. So Tracy was 2 years older, and I believe Bernicia was the same age as her. So Tracy remembers Wes talking about Sanctuary Church and of the Open Door in Pennsylvania, and how she would go there with her mom, that Wes sang beautifully, sometimes even leading choir. Johnson describes her saying she was family. Bernicia Patterson, they met when they were 14. The 2 saw each other as sisters and twins. They acted so alike and were always together. Patterson said, "Blood couldn't make us no closer." Robin spent most of her childhood with her mom in West Pennsylvania, sometimes staying with her dad, a police officer and assistant church pastor on the north side of PA. Leroy was stricter with his daughter, and this was something she really rebelled against, particularly when he enacted a curfew. Robin moved out of her mom's home when she was 18. According to her father, Robin was very adventurous, very strong-willed. It really didn't matter what anybody felt. If she made up her own mind to do something, she would do it. Loved ones mention how West often expressed herself through her hair color. When happy, she would dye her hair blonde, mint green, and post about it on social media. When feeling low, she would dye her hair black. So Cheeks 247 Lounge, a club in West PA, which has since shut down. She worked there as an exotic dancer. According to her friend Quadavia Williams, Robin would cry over her parents and how they did not accept her. Quadavia trained Robin in stripping. She talked about how Robin loved going out with her girlfriends, and in contrast, her parents were much more like church-going folks. Robin and her friends, Bernicia Patterson, both were employed through sex work and did their best to try to keep one another safe, going out for work in pairs and taking photos and writing down license plates, that sort of thing. They would place ads online and meet men in Pennsylvania hotels. Robin's birthday was coming up on September 5th. She was turning 20. She had a gorgeous sleeveless white dress she was going to celebrate in. In late August of 2016, the girls planned a trip to New Jersey. They booked several nights at the Garden State Motor Lodge on Union Township. They were just 15 miles from Manhattan. At some point, they became low on cash and didn't have a place to stay. August 31st at 11 p.m., the girls out to look for work, making their way along New York Avenue in Newark. Burned out homes and weedy lots, a desolate train yard. Robin was dressed in a red Nike hat, black lacy shirt, and black shorts. They were met with a silver sedan with a driver Patterson described as charming. When asked, he pointed to Robin, who got into his vehicle, and they drove away. Patterson told the man to be careful with my sister, because I love her. Patterson typed down his license plate before it drove off. According to phone records, we know that he took her to an abandoned home at 472 Lakeside Avenue in Orange, New Jersey, 2 miles from his home. He stayed in the home for an hour, leaving at 1:27 a.m. A neighboring home called it in 23 minutes later, as the house was on fire. Wheeler-Weaver left the scene, drove around, and came back to watch the fire rage, knowing they would eventually discover her body. According to a veteran with the Orange Fire Department and city's lead arson investigator, Matthew Picercio, it was the most destructed body he had ever come across. Robin never made it back to Patterson and was reported missing the following day. Patterson was able to provide the license plate, which belonged to a silver BMW. Robin died August 31st, less than a week before her birthday. Wheeler-Weaver had been interviewed by the police when West went missing, and they considered him calm and helpful at the time. He even pointed out in location he had dropped her off at, or so he had said. Supposedly, he took them there too. Only 2 blocks from the home he set fire to her remains. His phone was connected to Brown's murder, as the last call she made was from his phone to a friend. So Robin West and her family, Robin West's mom, Anita Mason, said, "I will never forget her smile, her face, her walk, her desire to help homeless people. The world focuses on the last month of her life. She had a whole entire life before her demise. Hundreds of people were affected by her life and were saddened by her death." West's father said, "Justice was served, but nobody's won. You have 5 families who have to live and move on. 3 girls will never return home. I will probably live with what happened to her for the rest of my life. And then you have a mother who was watching her son, who was probably going to jail for the rest of his life. So there is no winning. Just justice has been served. It's a long road still ahead for all 5 families." Now, this is something that he said before they found Duumbia's body. So now it is 6 families and 4 women that have died. It is noted, according to sources, that West, Brown, and Taylor were all struggling financially with homelessness, and those who engaged in sex work did so as a last resort and an attempt to stay off the streets. So, Joanne Brown, 33, she was born in Augusta, Maine. She had 1 sister and 6 brothers. Everyone called her Billy Joe. By the age of 5, her family moved to Newark. She loved fashion and hairstyling. She graduated from West Side High School. Brown was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. She also suffered from drug addiction. Best friend Amina Nobles said she had issues when she was young. That's what made me draw to her, because she used to come to me and talk to me about her problems. She worked as an exotic dancer for over 10 years. First, she went by the name Secrets, and later changed it to London. In addition to dancing, she engaged in sex work on the streets. Friends expressed concern for her safety, Amina in particular. Amina recalls asking if she will ever want to change, as in stop performing sex work. Brown would tell her it was the only way she could get money. Brown did try to seek help. She was living in a building run by a nonprofit organization called Project Lives. It offers housing, drug treatment, and counseling. According to her social worker, Christine Edwards, she had a lot of male friends supporting her. She also mentions that it was difficult with her to get her to keep a lot of her appointments in counseling. Joanne and Amina were hanging out with some friends by Popeyes on south side of Newark on October 22nd, 2016. Wheeler-Weaver appears by the Popeyes 1:16 p.m. and catches sight of Brown. Normally, Joanne would call Amina to give her a location and expected time of return, as sex work is incredibly dangerous. But on this particular occasion, one of their friends was borrowing her phone to make an important call. After lending out her phone, she sits in Wheeler-Weaver's car. She asks to borrow his phone and calls Amina at 1:30 p.m. This was Joanne's last call. Based on phone triangulation, their location was pinpointed to an abandoned home on Highland Avenue in Orange, New Jersey, with an address of 354 Highland Avenue, Orange, New Jersey. I will try to include a picture of this building in this video. Joanne enters with him. As with the other victims, he wraps duct tape around her head, eyes, and chin. He suffocates her with a jacket. He leaves the crime scene at 3:03 p.m. Upon arriving home, he calls Amina, who asks after Joanne, referring to her by her work name London. He makes no response. Amina tries to call him back numerous times with no response. She reports Joanne missing to Newark police. According to Nobles, she always called me every day. This time, something wasn't right. When Joanne went missing, her friends shared with reporters that someone had gone into her Facebook account, posting strange things about sex, things she was doing or was going to do. It wasn't until December 5th that her body was found on the landing of the stairs. Contractors arrived at the abandoned home at the behest of the owner to provide them an estimate. Upon approaching the landing, they discovered Joanne's body, telling the owner, "Boss, I think somebody's sleeping in here." Later, discovering she was not sleeping. She was dead. Tiffany Taylor. So North Jersey interviewed Tiffany 2 years ago, which you can find on YouTube, as well as an article on her, which was published in February 2020. Another interview with Sistagurl Talk TV occurred a year ago. That is also on YouTube, as well as her channel. Tiffany Taylor is 39 years old. She grew up in Salem, Lafayette, apartments in New Jersey with her mom in an area described as dangerous, with drug use and violence being commonplace. According to North Jersey, Tiffany witnessed multiple boyfriends get murdered in front of her. She's quoted as saying by North Jersey, "One, I had to wash his brains off the ground. He left it right on the doorstep. I had guns pointed to my head a few times before by police and other people." She also had experience dealing with workplace sexual harassment when at 17 she worked at Jeepers Children's Arcade at the Jersey Garden Mall. When Taylor was 18, she and her mom decided to move to Orlando, Florida. Tiffany was working towards a degree in music engineering and psychology at Valencia College. She was unable to complete her education, and she eventually became pregnant. She and her mother moved back to New Jersey. North Jersey quotes her as saying, "I wanted to do gymnastics, or be an ice skater, or a singer on TV, or acting, but when I got pregnant, I pretty much gave up on everything. North Jersey goes on to explain that another few years go by, and between being a mother, her drug use and criminal record, that she had a hard time finding employment. Now, I will also note that Tiffany herself did not mention this in her interview, so take it with a grain of salt, because some of the things mentioned in articles are not consistent with what she actually said. So take that how you'd like. Maybe she's leaving things on purpose, I don't know, but I would like to focus on what she said more than just what has been said about her, okay? So we're going to talk about how she got away and then go over the details. So she got away when she convinced Wheeler-Weaver to take her back to the motel she left her phone at, claiming it had proof of their contact, and then somehow managed to call the police when she got there and lock him out. So they met in 2016. And she also was able to slip out of one hand in the handcuffs because she was double jointed. So that was helpful for her as well. So how they met. Tiffany met Wheeler-Weaver through her former best friend. He was dating her. Basically, her best friend was engaged in prostitution in relation to Khalil Wheeler-Weaver. They met through a dating app. That on the first occasion she met him, she hung out with him at his house with her best friend, and that she herself did not engage in prostitution in relation to him. Not personally. Tiffany explains in an interview that she herself did not have any sexual relationship with him, but that he had a crush on her and was very interested in her, constantly asking about her, things like that. So kind of like creepy, honestly. When Tiffany spoke with her friend, this came up often. So while she never engaged sexually with him, she ends up meeting him under false pretenses and tricks him with the sole objective of robbing him. So she explained this to her best friend and offered to split the money with her. So this happens April 2016. Tiffany met him in a weird, abandoned location. She asked for the cash up front, and afterwards makes an excuse about having left the condoms in her car. Some sources I read said it was $200. I will be leaving all of my links in the description for you. So she left her wallet behind, so he would feel reassured she was coming right back. Though this wallet had no money in it, she takes the money, gets in her car, and drives off. Had she remained, it is likely that she would also have passed away as with the other women. As the abandoned location and other aspects of the incident were very similar to what happened with the other women. And she believes robbing him saved her life, that she would have died that day. Later, Tiffany goes on to explain that she did not prostitute herself, but at the time of the rape and attempted murder, she was staying at a hotel room as a friend was helping her out. Purely as a friend, this other person, not him. She was several months pregnant at this time with her second daughter and had fallen on hard times. At this point, she was 34, and most sources say she at some point had been living in her car. Her close female friend at the time was telling her if Tiffany could give her friend a ride, that she would be given gas money for doing so. At the time, she trusted this friend who initiated the meeting with him, and that is why she allowed him as a passenger in her car. And this is according to Tiffany herself. She stopped at a gas station after picking him up, KW telling her how he no longer thought he would need the ride, that he was tired and wanted to get a hotel room. She drove up to a hotel called the London Border, a room for him alone. She goes to tell him that the London Border hotel is too expensive for a room and to find somewhere else for him to rent a hotel room. They drive away from that hotel, and on their way, he tells her he needs to use the necessary, or take a piss outside. He asks her to pull over on the side somewhere to relieve himself. She pulls over as asked, and he attacks her. She comes to in the backseat of the vehicle while being sexually assaulted from behind. When she woke up, she was handcuffed. though not when she first came to. She was in and out of consciousness, and it was like after the third time or so that he did end up taping her face and cuffing her. He also has a conversation with her at some point. I'm not sure exactly what order this occurred, so just remember that. So, throughout, he was whispering weird things in her ear. I wish we was in a hotel room. I would have demolished you. He had been wearing a partial ski mask, but later tells her who he is. Taking off the ski mask, he asks, "Do you remember me?" She asks him to remind her. Then he's like, "It's me, Khalil. Your friend, you know your friend, so-and-so. Remember me? I used to hang out with her." She responds, "Yeah, I remember." He goes, "Well, just to let you know, that ain't your friend. She threw you under the bus." The friend who told Tiffany he was going to need a ride to the hotel. They gave her his number. She did not remember who he was initially. She also remembers at some point during this whole attack, he did also make a comment that was interesting. He said, "Nobody wants me. Nobody likes me. Why do I have to pay for a girl to show me attention?" However, I would like to point out that he offers to pay women money. So I find that interesting. Okay, so he goes on to refresh her memory and then she remembers exactly who he was. 2 months before this happened, he had been trying to get her to mess around with him. When Tiffany was assisted out of the car, back to the hotel where she had left her phone, she walked to the hotel and told her friend, and they called the police. She also told him she would not call the police. She tried to trick him. Said that if he returned the car keys to her, she wouldn't, though she already had called them in reality. And he actually did come back with the keys. Security cameras can confirm this and show that him running away afterwards. While speaking with police about him, she saw him walking by from further away and pointed him out to the police. She gave them all the information she had on him, everything, and she was not believed. Police asked him to come over. He came over. They asked, "Is this him?" So she said, "Yeah, I think that's him," because she was like kind of nervous, you know. And the officer responded, "Thinking is not enough." So they just let him go. Did not ask to see his ID or anything. So with the police, it took 2 hours before the handcuffs were removed from her. Police made no efforts toward a rape kit, but treated her unsympathetically as a criminal. The hotel manager told her she had to leave the room due to the amount of attention she was bringing to the hotel. They wanted to kick her out, and she says that she kind of went off on them a little bit. The next morning, she left the hotel when her mom came to pick her up. They went to the hospital to have a rape kit conducted. Intimidation from the police. They tried to make her retract her statement and say that it never happened. Police threatened to tow her car, despite the handcuffs dangling from her wrists. The tape, the bruises all over her face. The man literally, who could be seen rushing off from near the hotel room, whom she told authorities was him, and she pointed out, seeing him running after her from the hotel room window. The evidence is clear. It's completely clear. Tiffany says she was spitting out teeth, cracking her teeth due to how hard he had been choking her. Told them her teeth were in the vehicle. Police officer Billy Lai apparently testified this in court. Just gonna say he sounds like a major doucher, but let's go. Okay. For someone to call an hour after the fact that they were kidnapped, it didn't seem that it was emergent, which to me sounds just ignorant and makes me cringe. Due to police distrust, and rightly so, she ends up going to the prosecutor with her information. And yeah, she ends up testifying. So in court she said, "I hope you didn't show him any remorse," because he's not showing any remorse, and this is something she said to the judge. She also talks about how, I don't trust anyone. I'm always paranoid, but I'm just happy to still be here and able to tell what happened so that he could be locked up for it. I just think she's kind of a badass, just saying. According to Sandra Miller from Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, many sexual assault victims never pursue charges against their assailants, especially after police treat them as suspects. The first assault is painful enough, but telling the story and not being believed just compounds the trauma. Survivors lose confidence in the entire system. However, Taylor had the courage to come forward and reach out to Essex County prosecutor to testify before the man who almost killed her. So North Jersey talks about how Taylor has been having panic attacks since what happened to her, and how it is more challenging to be out in public, that she can't wear makeup and do things as she used to, that she sleeps with her Bible under her pillow now. 3 weeks before Wheeler-Weaver's trial, Taylor moved into an apartment tower. She found herself in the staircase. When she heard voices, she ran downstairs. She heard voices there, so she ran back up. She was trapped on the stairs for an hour. During another panic attack, she ran across a 6-lane highway. This is a direct quote from Tiffany Taylor. I thought some guy was chasing me. When I'm out in public, I don't want to be out by myself, but I don't want to be around anybody either. I live a real paranoid life. I'm depressed, and I always think the worst of everything. So the daughter Taylor was pregnant with when the attack occurred is now 5 years old, and she's doing well. Though Taylor shared in an interview, after what he did to me, I'm scared for both of my daughters. So it is clear that while she did survive, she is having to work through some major trauma to be able to live again and feel some semblance of safety now. And, you know, it's really hard, and I hope she's doing better. I really do. So on her YouTube channel, she talks about how she wants to act as an advocate, visiting high schools and talking to them about dangers of online dating. About 10 or 11 months ago, she mentioned speaking with Hulu and Blank Productions and how she will be telling her story. So her YouTube account is very small. It's about 50 or 60 subscribers at present. I will be linking it in the description. It seems like she wants to talk about her story. So I thought that was really, really cool and really powerful. So let's talk about Sarah Butler. Sarah Butler is 20 years old, media arts major, attending New Jersey City University. Since she was 5 years old, she fell in love with dance. After passing the window of Premier Dance Theater, they observed dancers, she, her mother, and sister, Basania daily. She and her sister took dance together, and Sarah fell in love. She studied all different types of dance, ballet, modern, jazz, and African dance. In high school, she joined the Montclair High School Dance Company. By 15, she joined Premier's traveling troupe. She and her troupe competed in the Apollo Theater's amateur night, and they finished third. Her teacher, Yasmin Chisholm, said of Sarah, I can close my eyes and recall how bright her face was. My goodness, she smiled a lot. She had an infectious energy. Sarah's close friend, Sophia Nigro, talks about how much fun she had sleeping over at Sarah's house. When recalling her dear friend, she says, she was always dancing. Even when we were just hanging out, Sarah would be over in the corner, twirling around. Sarah's dance teacher from Premier Dance Theater talks about how much younger children admired her, how she was such a special person in the community, saying she would help within the community. We have a lot of community events, sister to sister. We do outside events, career day, public speaking classes, parties for the children. She would always be involved. So the Butler family is part of a tight-knit community, regularly attended church. Sarah had two sisters, Basania and Alaya, and all three girls were smart and worked really hard in school. Sarah's mother, Laverne, worked during the day, and her father, Victor, juggled getting her and her sisters to school and other activities. Victor mixed drinks at Glenridge Country Club. He also frequented Belleville area to play golf. The Butler children were all accomplished. Sarah and her sisters all took swim and dance. They worked at Montclair YMCA as lifeguards as well. Laverne was proud of her daughters for learning how to swim, as she grew up in Jamaica, but she had never learned to herself. Victor was very protective of his three daughters. Even into their teens, just going down the block to dance class, he would stand outside and keep an eye on them until they got inside the building. Sister Alaya talks about watching her sister's dance performance in Manhattan and how proud she was, how it would bring tears to her eyes, but that her sister would tease her for getting emotional about it. Alaya and Sarah were best friends. She says they were of the same heart and did so many things together. She remembers her sister for her smile, her jokes, and her attitude. Alaya dreams about her often. She also mentioned how Sarah was supposed to be the first of the Butler family to graduate from college. So I'm going to talk some more here about some events. So Sarah was having a hard time making friends in college and was feeling really lonely. For her first year, she chose to commute to school, but this time in the dorms, she was having a really hard time connecting with people. She and her roommates were not getting along well. Sarah decided to use a social media app called Tagged, which is where she met Wheeler-Weaver. He propositions her with promises of $500, and at first, she agrees to meet him. For their first proposed meeting, she hesitates and fails to meet up. Then she apologizes and they make plans to meet again. When Sarah left the house, she told her parents she was meeting to say goodbye to someone, but was not specific about who the individual was. She was supposed to be coming right back home, but she never made it back. She assumed maybe her daughter decided to sleep over at someone's house, but when she was unable to get a hold of Sarah the next day, she knew something was wrong. When Alaya last saw Sarah, she had been getting repeated phone calls from an unknown individual, and it weirded her out. Additionally, it was unusual for Sarah to not tell her family where she was going, as was the case on the day she was last seen. Sarah's disappearance mattered to all of those in her community. For some victims who lack this force to be reckoned with, it is easier for authorities to overlook them. Sarah's community got involved, looking for her and investigating. One community member worked in PR and used their skills to share about her disappearance online. Community members also held prayer vigil for her. Her sister catfished him and her friends. It was carried out by her sister, Basania, I think that's how you say it, and two of their friends, Samantha Rivera and Joanne Brown. They set him up to meet with the police at Panera. When police looked through his car, they found a body fluid cleanup kit, zip ties, and lighter fluid. Prosecutors in New Jersey allege that Butler and Wheeler-Weaver were spotted at numerous locations in Orange the day before she was reported missing. Catfish was carried out by Sarah's sisters, Basania, and two friends, Samantha Rivera and Lamia Brown. They set him up to meet with police at Panera. When police looked through his car, they found a body fluid cleanup kit, zip ties, and lighter fluid. Prosecutors in New Jersey allege that Butler and Wheeler-Weaver were spotted at numerous locations in Orange the day before she was reported missing. Family and friends of the victims speculate, telling news reporters they don't think he was working by himself or acting alone, though I haven't heard this anywhere else, so take that with a grain of salt, if you will. We're going to talk about the family's response here. When family found out who killed Sarah Butler, at least for her father Victor, he did not feel relief, but he rather wanted to look them in the eye and ask them why. A question they have not received an answer to, as Wheeler-Weaver has doubled down, still claiming his innocence, or at least at this time he did. Victor Butler said, "Somebody to do what they did to my baby girl. I just feel I couldn't help her. I wasn't there. That's the hardest part, you know?" So Premier Ballet Studio members performed at Sarah Butler's funeral, her classmates, and they openly grieved their loss. According to Premier Studio Director, "We love Sarah immensely, and I want to tell you about not just how much of a great dancer she was, but a great person." Sarah's friend, Sophia Nigro, still comes over and hangs out with the family, but it's quieter now without her. Her mother, Laverne, talks about her each day. But then it will be quiet because no one knows what to say, her friend says. Butler's mother says Sarah is always with her. "I can see her sometimes. I get up in the morning and she's twirling around the kitchen and she says, 'Mommy, what's for breakfast?' That's my Sarah. Always dancing around the house." From what I have gathered, families are still processing their loss and doing their best to move forward, but they remember their loved ones and honor them. I'd like to think that wherever she is now, that she is dancing and laughing and being the beautiful human her family always remembers her as. And the same sentiment applies to all the other women who have passed. I'd like to think that they are happy now and in a better place. Also, what I have gathered from all sources I read for this second part video, Taylor has a place to live with her 2 daughters. Her children are doing well, and she's been trying to process and move on with her life, while also talking about it and about wanting to be an advocate to speak out. While Wheeler-Weaver thought no one would care or remember them, remember the women he killed, he was dead wrong. All of them matter. And if there's anything you take away from this video, I hope it's that. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this interesting, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And I hope you have a good night. Sweet dreams. Until next time.